Good morning, everybody. It's your man, Bobby Hesley. Happy Monday morning to all of you from Thailand. It's probably Sunday night over in America where all my friends and family are right now. But I was out on a walk today, this morning, my regular morning walk. As you can see, the streets of Thailand are very quiet and peaceful. And I'm a stranded COVID-19 refugee. I was supposed to be back a couple of months ago, but all the international flights have been canceled, so I just kind of been here indefinitely. Maybe I'll be back in a few months. But anyway, I wanted to make a video, nothing fancy. I'm filming this from my cell phone. I'm not in a studio. I don't have sound equipment. I'm covered in sweat because I'm in the middle of my morning cardio workout. And you might even hear me a little bit winded, but that's okay. But I just had to share something. I got to get it off my heart or I'm going to explode, literally. I've learned that people don't read Facebook posts anymore. I've been known to write very lengthy Facebook posts that pretty much nobody reads because social media has basically permanently warped the attention spans of most people to where if it's not in video or audio form, it's pretty much not going to be heard. So I just wanted to make a video. Again, nothing fancy. Just share my thoughts on everything. And I'm 13 hours ahead of everybody who's probably going to see this. You're probably all in bed right now. Maybe you'll see it when you wake up. But today marks the 2-week anniversary of the death of George Floyd, of what I believe is the murder of George Floyd, okay? Monday, May 25th, the entire world saw a man, we all know what happened. A man who was basically strangled to death and died of asphyxiation. The tape doesn't lie. And a lot has happened, not only in America, but in the entire world in the last 2 weeks. It's amazing how everything has changed so quickly. And I want to kind of address, I want to address everybody, but who I want to address in particular, there's a dog. Hey, buddy. Who I want to address in particular are young black males. I want you to look at me, even if you don't know who I am. Maybe somebody passed this video on to you. I want you to see me for the next 10, 15 minutes, however long this video goes. And I apologize for the noise. I want you to see me as the father you never had for the next 10 to 15 minutes, okay? Because what I'm getting ready to tell you is what I would tell my own sons if I had sons and if I was raising them. Now, first off, let me start by saying that I'm many things. I'm known to be many things. But the core of what my identity is, and if you're a young man watching this, the core of my identity is not my race, okay? Before I'm a black man, before I'm a Republican, before I'm a conservative, before I'm an entrepreneur, before I'm an American, before I'm a man, before I'm any of those other things, I am Catholic. I'm a follower and a disciple of Jesus Christ. That's who the core of my identity is. And that's who the core of your identity should be. I'm not saying you should be Catholic, even though I think you should. I think it's the one true faith. But if you're a follower of Jesus, the core of your identity should be who you are in Christ. It should come before your race. It should come before your gender. It should come before your occupation. It should come before your marital status, whether you're single, married, whatever. Your faith in Jesus Christ should come before everything. And I gotta say, one of the most heartbreaking things that I've seen unfold throughout this George Floyd aftermath, the tragedy in the wake of his tragic death. And I've seen lots of things, but I think the thing that grieves me the most, I'm grieved by the looting. I'm grieved by the rioting. I'm grieved by innocent business owners having their lives and their livelihood destroyed by people that they actually agree with about how horrible this thing is. All those things sadden me. All the deaths of innocent cops that have been killed saddens me. R.I.P. to Captain David Dorn, who was murdered senselessly over some TVs. The biggest thing that's been grieving me is I see all these young black males who are being brainwashed to be afraid, who are being brainwashed to be victims, who are being brainwashed to think that they're an endangered species simply because of the fact that they're black. Now, does police brutality exist? Absolutely. Does police brutality exist among blacks? Absolutely. Nobody can deny that after what happened 2 weeks ago. But the fact of the matter is this. The core of your identity has to be Christ. And the reason why is because he has a plan for your life. And he is greater than any racist out there. I've been hearing a lot of people that have been making young black men feel like they are completely powerless. That because they were born with too much melanin in their skin, that they're going to be hunted down, they're going to be targeted, they're going to be held back, they're going to be denied opportunities. And to me, this is not the attitude of Dr. Martin Luther King. Whatever happened to "we shall overcome"? Whatever happened to that? As a matter of fact, in 1 John 4, verse 4, it says, "Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world." I want you young black men to realize that God's plan for your life is not going to be stopped by racism. If you experience racism, I've experienced my fair share of racism, but the fact is, God is greater than any sin, and racism is a sin. Let's make no mistake about it. The sin of racism is so egregious because in a way it's a form of heresy. Okay, here's the Catholic apologist in me starting to come out a little bit. Racism is a theologically flawed way of viewing human beings. Why? Because every human being, regardless of their skin color, is made in the image and likeness of God, okay? Human beings, we're all like walking mirrors. We are all mirrors, okay? And what's the primary function of a mirror? It's to reflect an image of an actual person. That's what a mirror is. That's what my cell phone is right now. My cell phone is a digital mirror that is reflecting my image to the world or whoever's watching this video, right? So every race is a different mirror, okay? There are Caucasian mirrors, there are black mirrors, there are Mexican mirrors, Asian mirrors, Chaldean mirrors, Indian mirrors. There are all these beautiful different kinds of mirrors walking around. And what makes racism such a terrible sin is racism says, you know what? I like that white mirror, but I'm going to pick up a brick and I'm going to smash that black mirror. I don't like the way God's image looks in that black mirror. I don't like the way God's image looks in that Thai mirror, right? I'm in Thailand right now. So I can go on and on with examples, but that's what the sin of racism is all about. That's what makes it so terrible, is that you are basically calling God ugly. You're looking at a reflection of God in the mirror, which is a black person, a white person, or whatever you want to call it person, whatever race they are. And you're looking at God, you're looking at his reflection in that mirror, that reflection of his image and likeness, and you're calling God ugly. You're saying, God, I don't like the way your nose looks. Your nose looks too big. You look like a monkey. You're too short, which is what people say about Asians, right? You're too, you're too red, which is what people say about Indians. I can go on and on with examples, but that's what you're doing. Racism says that God is ugly. That's why it's a sin. And the fact is, racism is a sin that's going to be here until the end of the world. Just like in John chapter 12, Jesus said, "The poor you shall always have with you." Poverty is something that's going to exist until the return of Christ. The same thing goes for racism. Now, that doesn't get us off the hook. That doesn't say that we can't fight racism. That doesn't say that we can't do everything in our power to eradicate it. Hold on, guys. I'm going by some loud dogs. Sawadika. But the fact of the matter is, guys, the answer to sin is not rioting. It's not looting. But the answer to sin is also not fear. The answer to sin is also to not see yourself as a helpless victim, because you're not a victim. As a matter of fact, it says in Romans 8:37 that we are more than conquerors. It doesn't just say that we're conquerors. It says that we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. And I want you young men who feel like you're these hunted down, helpless, powerless victims that are damned to a life of police brutality, that are damned to a life of systemic racism. And we can talk about systemic racism. Maybe we can do it in a different video. I don't have a very popular opinion of what systemic racism is, because I do believe that systemic racism exists. I just don't believe the systemic racism narrative that's pushed out by the mainstream media and by those who are on what I call the black left. But there is systemic racism that exists. Maybe I'll address it in this video if you want to have a lengthy video, maybe in another one, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, greater is he that is in me. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So when you look at all these crooked cops, and most cops, the majority of cops are good cops. They really are. They truly do want to protect and serve and make a difference in their community. They really do. But like every profession, there are bad apples. But greater is he that is in you than he that was in Officer Derek Chauvin. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the KKK or neo-Nazis. Here's another conversation we can have. And anybody who knows me knows I'm willing to take it there. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in Planned Parenthood, which kills more of us than any cop, any KKK, any other racist organization you can think of combined. All the other deaths that afflict the black community, all the other genocides, they don't come close to the genocide of abortion. They really don't. And again, maybe that's a separate conversation we can have in another video. But the fact is, I want to encourage my young black brothers. Again, this is the father you never had for the next 15 minutes. This is what I would tell my son. If he was alive during these times right now, I would tell him that you're not a victim, you're a victor, right? Because of who your identity in Jesus is. Now, I'm not trying to sound woo-woo and trying to sound like I'm up in the clouds and out of touch with reality. Listen, I've experienced my fair share of racism in my life. And I should have given you my street cred in the beginning, because anybody might say, man, this Bobby guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what the struggle of black people is. Well, that means you don't know me, because I grew up. You want to hear my credentials? You want to hear my street credentials? You want to hear my street cred? I want you to go on Google, not now, because I want you to see this video, but after this video, I want you to go on Google and I want you to type in Brightmoor, B-R-I-G-H-T-M-O-O-R. Just type in Brightmoor, Detroit. That's all you got to type in. Go to Google, type in Brightmoor, Detroit, click on images. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Brightmoor, Detroit, the worst neighborhood during the 80s and 90s during the crack epidemic. I grew up on Schoolcraft and Evergreen, on Auburn and Kendall. That's where I grew up. I spent half my life living in the hood. I came from nothing. You understand me? I came from zero. I am a young, black, fatherless male from inner city Detroit. That's what I came from. That's the soil that I was raised from, okay? When the stork, we've all heard of the stork that delivers, that drops cute little babies. Well, you know what, guys? The stork dropped me in the middle of hell. Bobby Hesley had a very hard crash landing on planet Earth. I didn't arrive in a nice little suburban neighborhood with white picket fence and a 2-parent home with a good school district and low crime. The stork dropped me in the middle of hell, in the middle of the worst neighborhood in Detroit at the time, which some would argue still is. Again, anybody from Detroit will tell you, Brightmoor is not Disneyland, okay? I spent half of my childhood, from the ages of 8 to 16, in the foster care system. I went around to different group homes because my family life was unstable. My mom was diagnosed with a severe clinical condition. My dad was a man of the streets. I love my dad. I lost him to cancer back in '96. God rest his soul. But anybody who knows my dad knows that he was a very successful drug dealer. So successful, in fact, that even the FBI and the DEA knew who my dad was. That's where I came from. So I don't want anybody to try to discredit me as some out-of-touch Uncle Tom, sellout black conservative who doesn't know the struggle of black people. I have had, if we want to compare our pain, we want to have a woke measuring contest, I have had a harder, tougher childhood than most people that will watch this video, including black people. So don't come and tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. But why is it that years later, I'm a successful entrepreneur who's chilling in Thailand right now? Look at these beautiful surroundings. A very successful entrepreneur, live life on my own terms, owns multiple properties because I'm a real estate investor, have my own schedule, not hurting for money, not in tons of debt. I have passion projects I do. I'm a Catholic speaker. I write, I talk, I teach, I educate. Why did I not end up in jail? Why did I not end up dead? Why did I not end up with 10 different kids by 12 different chicks? Why did I not end up with all those other stereotypes that all the statistics say that a fatherless young black male from the inner city of Detroit who spent half of his childhood in the foster care system end up? Why didn't I end up on the ground with handcuffs behind my back with the officer's knee on my neck, huh? Because, and I'm not blaming George Floyd for his death, I'm just using a recent example that if you allow your environment to define you, if you allow your childhood, if you allow all the pain and hurt that you've been through and you don't put your identity in Jesus, you are going to end up as a statistic. If you see the world through the lens of the color of your skin, and that's the only lens that you see everything through, is the color of your skin, you are going to have a victim mentality. I've experienced racism in my life. As a matter of fact, I've experienced racism recently here in Thailand. You know what they call people like me in Thailand? Here's another term you can look up. They call us Farangs. That's the N-word for foreigners. They call us Farangs. I wanted to donate blood when I got here. You know why I couldn't donate blood to the Thai Red Cross when I first got here? Because you have to be in Thailand for a minimum of 6 months before you can donate blood, because it's a racist policy that they have. They don't want foreign blood. It's a national Thai pride thing. That was racism. Now, did that keep me up at night? Did that make me want to burn down a store and protest and riot and loot and all that? No. And again, I'm not comparing not being able to donate blood to being killed like George Floyd. But what I'm saying is, I have experienced just as much racism as most black people. In fact, and again, I'm not trying to have a woke measuring contest here, and I'm not trying to minimize the pain that other blacks and other minorities have been put through at the hands of racists, because racists still do live among us, because racism is a sin, just like lust and greed and pride and all these other things are sins. And I went into what that is. You're calling God ugly when you're a racist. That's what you're doing. Hey, God, your reflection is really ugly in that black mirror. That's what you're saying to God. So knock it off if that's what you do. But what I'm saying is, I believe I've probably experienced more racism than most people because I'm biracial. So I've experienced racism from both races. My mom is Italian and my dad was black. My sisters and I experienced a ton of racism when we were kids. And you know what's funny? And I've long gotten over this, because again, when your identity is in Christ, things that you've been through don't define you, because Jesus defines you. But the fact of the matter is, I experienced the majority of racism in my life from other black people. Because when you're biracial, when you're mixed, when you have that quote unquote good hair that everybody talks about, when you're more light skinned than most black people, they are going to be vocal at their displeasure of that. And if you think I had it tough, I've been called the N-word by white people, but you know what I've been called more than the N-word in my life? I've been called Oreos. I've been called zebras, 50-50s, mulattoes, half-breeds. I've been called all those hurtful things, all those hurtful racist things by black people. And you think I had it tough? Huh. Don't get me started on my oldest sister. My oldest sister went to a Catholic high school, Benedictine High School in Detroit. She ended up graduating from Mumford. My sister had to be pulled out of a Catholic high school because she got bullied by black girls. She used to get in fights. She used to get in fights all the time. She was even jumped a few times by packs of black girls who were racist towards her. Because my sister, you know, I've got kind of a fair complexion. My sister is very light skinned. She almost has like a yellow Asian kind of a complexion. She used to get called all kinds of terrible names by other black people, specifically black girls. She used to get called Tweety Bird. All the girls were jealous of her because all the guys in high school, they liked the caramel complected light skinned chicks with the good long silky hair, which is what my older sister was. So they would call her terrible names. And she ended up graduating from Mumford, but she really went through it. And most of the pain of racism that she was put through her childhood, that I was put through, came at the hands of other black people. And I'm not saying I hate black people. I love my people. They're part of who I am. but I'm also white. I have a dual heritage. I'm also Italian. So I've experienced racism from blacks. My sisters have experienced racism from blacks. I've experienced racism from whites. I've even experienced racism from other minority communities because I'm black. I was prejudged. The color of my skin was the first thing that they saw. They judged me before they had a conversation with me. Little did they know that I'm like this Catholic speaker guy and all this kind of stuff. But my issue is this. Why did none of those things define me? Why am I not some angry guy walking around feeling like the world owes him college tuition, feeling like the world owes him jobs and all this kind of stuff? Because like my mom always used to tell me, and again, I apologize for the sweat. I have a sweatband, but I look really stupid in it. So I actually look less stupid with sweat pouring down than I would in a sweatband, trust me. But why am I not this angry black man that if I was at home right now would be out rioting and looting and all that with everybody else? Because like my mom always used to tell me, life is not fair, but Jesus is. He makes all things right and just in the end. So for those of you who feel like you're this victim that's damned to a future of no rights, I am living proof that you can have a terrible childhood. You can be in the system for half of your childhood. You can experience racism from whites and from blacks and from other minority groups and still grow up and make something of yourself if you allow Jesus to right the wrongs that have happened to you. Put your faith in him. Don't put your faith in politicians. Do you really think Joe Biden is the answer to all the pain that you're feeling right now? And I'm not trying to get political, but let's be real here. Do you really think that any of these other liberal politicians that for the last 50, 60 years have been promising you schools and jobs and all these other things that they've been promising you every 4 years to get your votes, do you really want more of the same? Do you really think that they are going to solve that pain? No. I don't even see Trump as the answer to black people's problems, although he has done more for the black community than any other president who ever has. What other president gave $1 billion to Howard University and other HBCUs? What other president did that, including Obama? What other president has enacted more prison reform, which, by the way, was an undoing of policies that Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton put in place that incarcerated more black males than any other recent legislation? Trump is undoing all that now. What other president has done that? What other president has brought black employment down to historically low numbers ever since they've been recording that number since 1973 with the Bureau of Labor and Statistics? What other president has done that? Nobody has come close. And again, I'm not saying Trump is the answer to all of our problems, but he's definitely been part of the solution. But the ultimate solution is to put your faith in Jesus Christ, young men. Again, I'm not here to make you a Republican. I'd rather see you become Catholic before I saw you become Republican, because that's who the core of my identity is. So it's getting loud here. It's starting to ramble. But I want to do, at a future time, I'm going to do another video that talks about and addresses the real systemic racism that's going on in the United States. Because I do believe that there is a systemic racism that goes on. But it's not, sorry for the noise, guys, but it's not the systemic racism that you hear peddled about. And I hope you're open-minded and open-hearted, because this victim mentality, it has to stop. You are not a victim. You are not defined by the bad things that happen to you. What defines you is not the bad that happens to you, but the good that you and God as a team allow to come out of that bad that's done to you. So I want you to remember those scripture verses. I want you to remember 1 John 4, verse 4, that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I want you to read Romans chapter 8, verses 35 through 39, that talks about how nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. Nakedness, peril, persecution, even the sword. Not even the sword can separate us from the love of Christ. And it ends by saying that we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. So I, Bobby Hesley, as your surrogate father for the past 24 minutes, I'm here to tell you that you are more than a conqueror through him who loves you. Jesus loves you, I love you, and I want you to define yourself based on your relationship with Jesus. If God has a plan for your life, racism that you experience, it might make it a little bit harder to carry out that plan. It might even slow it down a little bit. But it's not gonna stop his plan for your life, no more than it stopped his plan for my life. Do you really think God is gonna allow some ignorant people walking around calling his reflection in the mirror, which is you, ugly? You really think he's gonna let a bunch of idiots stop his plan for you? Of course not. God is greater than racism. Stop making him like he's this weak, helpless little fairy in the sky that's looking down, powerless. You are a child of God. You are a son of the King. You're a daughter of the King if you're a woman watching this. And greater is he that is in you than he that is in all those terrible places that I mentioned earlier. So again, pardon the sweat, guys. I love you. Like and share this video. If you know any young black men that want to hear a different perspective, because they're hearing lots of perspectives right now, but I think the main perspective that most young black men are hearing and most young black people are hearing is that they are helpless victims. I want to offer you a different perspective of hope, of empowerment, of success, but mostly of faith in Jesus Christ. So I love you. God bless you. I'll be praying for you. 8,000 miles away from Thailand. I hope to be back in America soon. And tune in for the next video. Signing off.